we are continuing to talk about the hijab as I've done for a while now. And recently, I have been thinking more and more about the benefits of the female Islamic clothing standard. And when I go on Twitter/X, I will see quite a lot of people saying the hijab should be banned, and they have a deep resentment for Islamic female clothing. And if you go through my vlog playlist, I have I'm on vlog playlist number 5 now, but each one has something related, except for 5. It'll have this one saved, but if you go through the others, you'll notice how I have talked about the benefits of why the hijab, the veil, loose clothing, kimar, all the different names for the clothing standards has benefited me. Now, it is true that you can get into semantics about how much of the face to show and gloves, colors. Now, if you go through Islamic, men can wear different style hats, being more common, cultural aspect to things as well, which we can't deny. But my core issue, to slim down the topic, is what are the basics of female clothing standards in Islam? I'm aware that the hijab is a larger concept, including bashfulness, shyness, you name it. I understand. But for the sake of where I'm going in this conversation, I'm going to focus on loose clothing, covering the hair, bare minimum. So loose, no tight fitting, no yoga pants, belly shirts, pantsuits, rompers. You know, you get the gist. Stuff like that. No booty shorts, no jeans, okay? And covering the hair. Covering the hair is the basic, in my opinion. And it is difficult for some women to fathom letting go of their power. They feel that their only power is to entice, control, manipulate, bait the male gaze. And so when they see women who have rejected that system for religion, aka Islam, aka Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they find that very threatening, because it's a threat to the power they have over men. Assalamu alaikum, Farhan. Assalamu alaikum. I love the topics you cover and how insightful you are, mashallah. Well, thank you for being here. I'm glad you enjoy it. When you see that there are women who are like, okay, I'm not covering myself up like that, because their validation does come from the amount of heads they turn. And I've been watching this phenomenon more and more. And for example, there was a lady on Instagram. She dresses in fashion statements that are from old money Europe. And she will put up a camera, walk in the crowd, and she records how many people look at her. I find that kind of off-putting. I don't think everyone who looks at her is thinking like, wow, you're just so overly beautiful and you are perfect. I think it's more of like, this lady's recording herself and she's dressed elegantly, but she's walking in the street. So, you know, maybe they're turning their heads because of the fashion statement she's making, not because they think she actually has wealth. But she has a whole page where it's just her walking in public and turning heads. So this gives you more and more insight to the female desire for attention. Now, everyone wants to feel noticed. They want to kind of feel like they have a purpose, right? Salam Bashir, Salam Arabian Meme Lord. They want to feel like they have something to offer the world. And some women, when they see that their sex appeal can't be the forefront of who they are as a person, they struggle with this. Now, something that is also fascinating is there are some women who will say, I'm more than just a pretty face, and they do a lot of self-mutilation after trauma. A lot of women who were really pretty, something happens to them in a relationship, some type of violence happens to them, and they get throat tattoos, they tattoo their eyeballs black, they start getting a lot of piercings, they go through extreme body modifications. And some of them, when you ask them, why did you do this? They will say like, well, I'm more than just a pretty face, and I'm tired of everyone just looking at me as a piece of meat. And then you start to notice this sort of self-harm that's bandaged by, oh, well, I just want to be edgy and distinguish myself from the crowd. And so they distort their beauty so much so that they start to look very different. And this taps into the dilemma of women want to be beautiful, but then when they get the wrong kind of male attention, they feel a very deep sense of wanting to cover. And so a prime example of that is when like a woman could be exposing herself. Someone could make an awkward comment and then she'll like cover it because she feels this sort of shyness, this innateness that comes in. Now, there are women who are boldly hedonistic, as in you could tell them anything in the world and they'll say, well, I was born naked, so I'm staying naked. And you're like, well, that person is just kind of odd. Not going to have too much hope there. But if you really get down to the power of insecurity, you'll see how that inhibits some from seeing the honor and glory that the Islamic clothing puts upon women. Now, some men, when they talk about the hijab, they say it in a very diminutive way. Everyone has the way in which they perceive the Islamic garbs. And I can't stop if some people see it as a form of a tool. I can't stop how people make it have a bad rap. I just can't, right? And so I can only share how it's benefited me and how I've perceived it. And I come from a unique perspective because being American, growing up in the 90s, we had Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears. We had so much hedonism pushed on us that a lot of girls started acting promiscuous at a very young age, and this caused quite a lot of STDs to spread, a lot of girls becoming single parents at a young age, and really led to a lot of self-harm. And so I made a nice iced tea, organic black tea with honey and half. It's so good. And so this leads to a lot of women not knowing where their purpose is. Adhan Kabir says, decades later we now got OF. Yeah, exactly. And to touch on that OF comment, you listen to some interviews of women who said, oh, I've been doing it for 7 months and I hate the messages I get from men and it's made me feel sick and jaded and bitter and now I hate men, and they say all these comments and you're like, it's almost like they want to cover but they're desperate for money, and now look. And so what I'm trying to get at is that when you see people shaming Muslim women for covering, I think you're looking at someone who's programmed to want to expose their body for critique constantly. So the need for critiquing, let me explain what I mean by that. Some women, they don't have this internal love for themselves, so they expose their adorned assets. They stand in a certain way that pokes out their bum. They wear loose tops that expose what Allah has adorned them with. And if a man isn't looking at them, then they feel like, oh, I must be this ugly ogre, and they want the envy. They want someone to critique them like, oh, you look like this or you should change that. It's sort of like an externalized form of approval. So, for me, as an American revert, when I wear the clothing, I feel like it's more of a statement of, I don't need you eyeballing me up and down. I don't need you to tell me the latest fashion trend. I do not care. I do not need to spend thousands of dollars on your latest clothing styles, your shoes and all that. I don't need it. I'm happy with myself, and I'm acknowledging how age will come for us all. And so, for me, the Islamic clothing standards helps women to break free from that dependency of externalized validation that comes from men, lesbian women, and bisexuals. Because women do like making other women jealous sometimes. This is something that women don't admit openly, but they do like it. And so, I think when you wear very modest clothing, which I consider Islam to have the highest form of modesty, you're acknowledging that you have mercy towards other women and you're not interested in turning on their men or giving their husband lustful thoughts, and you're just vibing. You are actually being spiritual. Now, there are some paganistic, occultic women who feel that their spirituality comes from their sexuality. I'm not part of that camp. Personally, I think that the more lustful you become, the more demonic energy you get, because you start breaking off into fetishes and kinks and weird terrain that has time and time again proven slippery slopes. That the more you indulge in those hedonistic passions, you get bored, and then you seek something weirder, more exotic, and nothing's ever good enough, and you just start to feel dejected. And then when you think about all the stuff you've witnessed, you just feel this putrid rot within your chest. And so I don't think sexuality is spirituality. Now, when you come together to make children, I consider that a spiritual act. But there's a long conversation around that. But when a Muslim woman adorns herself with the wonderful Islamic garbs, to me she has freed herself from the evil eye of other women, from being a tool of shaitan to tempt other women's husbands, and to become invisible. So when you wear the Islamic clothing as a woman, you do become more invisible. And this is a hard thing for some women to handle, because they want to be the idol. They want to stand there and be gawked at and put into a statue in a real deep sense. They can't stand just being ignored. A pretty woman, see, ugly women they're already invisible almost, except to be mocked at. And a lot of them have accepted their fate. But beautiful women who are a rosebud and they bloom, they are stuck in this, okay, I'm beautiful, the light has to always be on me. And so when they see how men do ignore you when you wear Islamic clothing, they struggle internally with this, because they need it. What's fascinating to me is that there will be people who hate us Muslims so much, they will say the hijab, any type of Muslim clothing should be banned, they argue, right? Okay. But if a feminist is allowed to shave her head, why am I not? What is the feminist in her head? She's rejecting to participate in what society deems as code for women's individual expression. Okay? Now, a Buddhist woman, I've seen them shave their heads and wear that orange, that orange robe. So, will liberals, if women all start shaving their heads, will liberal atheists say, no, you can't shave your head. You have to show your hair, and you have to, let us look at you, and it has to be stylized, and you have to dye it, and you can't have gray hair. Where is the line drawn on what women are allowed to do with their hair? And so when someone says to me, the hijab is against Western standards for women, it just really goes back down to ignoring the history of Europe itself and how many women would cover their hair. And I shared some pictures of rustic art on my Instagram where it showed just that, women covering their hair and being fully clothed. Even in ancient Rome, there was women who have the headscarf, right? And a lot of classy women wore gloves in 18th century England, 17th century England, wearing gloves, large hats, dresses that were poofy, they didn't show their legs, they didn't show their thighs, or even their ankles, really. And so, no matter which way you square it, every culture has had a time in its period where women could wear something loose. And so, on the surface level, when you see a Muslim woman wearing something loose, how is that extremism? They say if you cover your hair, it's extreme. You cover your face, it's extreme. Well, wasn't everyone forced to cover their face? Preschool kids were forced to cover their faces. Everyone had to wear a face mask during lockdowns in their college classes and their public schools. Everyone did. Bus drivers, people would wear a mask in their car alone. And that was science. So science can tell you to cover your face to not spread germs. But if religion tells you to cover your face so that you can avoid the evil eye and avoid envy and lust, that's bad. So you can cover your face if an atheist tells you to, who's in a lab coat. Anthony Fauci can tell you to cover your face. But if your religion tells you to cover it, well, now that's extreme. So you can listen to a lab coat, but you can't listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So where does it end? And in Japan, I noticed a lot of people would wear face masks even before the lockdowns when you see their videos. Again and again, you just begin to see, why do some men and women feel entitled to see your face? Now, if you're a man covering your face, that's a big problem with crime. But a woman, I don't really see the issue here. And people will say a Muslim woman covering her face is bad for security reasons. Show me the statistics of Muslim women doing bank robberies. Oh, I heard it, they made a joke and everything. I heard it, and some people were saying, oh, she could be concealing a weapon if she has a niqab on, and we have to know that. And I thought to myself, that's odd, because Christian women can have concealed carry permits in Texas, and they can conceal it in their purse or however they want. And those Christian women, they're not considered a threat by having a concealed carry permit. But if a Muslim woman covers her face and has a concealed carry, she's a threat. So the standard doesn't really measure up. The Second Amendment isn't just for Christians. It's for everyone who feels that they need to defend themselves against criminals. It says shall not be infringed. And Islam does not ban women from having a sword, a dagger, pepper spray, a taser, or firearm, crossbow, an axe, a machete, you name it. If a woman feels she has to defend herself, that's her God-given right. And if you look at the violent crime of non-Muslim women versus Muslim women, I would be very curious to see that. Very curious to see it, because you would see that it is quite low. So I do find it odd that an argument against female Islamic clothing is they could be hiding something dangerous. Well, sure, where is the data to support such a suspicion? Is that just some propaganda that's fed to you because of war stuff? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. And so, it's sad if a nun can't wear her clothing, and it's sad that Christians would want to ban the clothing that the Virgin Mary wears in their own art. If you go and look through Jehovah's Witnesses' art in their books, Mormons, Christians, and Catholics, you look through the art, their sort of spirituality books, you will see women covering their hair and in loose clothing. Why is it that a Christian can have that depicted and it's okay, it's not extremism? So think about this further. If you go in the fashion industry, there is quite a lot of women who will wear a Vogue veil on their head, it's very beautiful. And in weddings, women will wear a veil even though their husband knows what they look like. Catholics, during certain ceremonies, wear veils. Mormons, when they have certain sealing rituals, they have a veil type hijab. And so we must examine how many cultures throughout time had some form of garment that covered their hair, and how some women denied men access to seeing their faces. One must argue true freedom for women means women's right to not be sex objects for lesbians, bisexuals, and men. Think about it. Why does it make some people so angry that women enjoy covering up? If you ban women from covering their hair, you have just set a rule. So if a Muslim country says you have to cover, we don't want public nudity, and you say that's wrong, and then turn around and say you don't have the right to cover, you're putting laws that force women to uncover themselves. Now, something fascinating is that hair has a very dynamic nature to it, doesn't it? Now, hair is just hair, but at the same time, it adds to something dynamic about you. When you see beautiful black women have a natural afro, or you see them have very short hair, and they have a very long neck, and they're from a Nubian tribe. When you see women who have hair that's black as a raven's feather in China or Japan, and it's long, no matter which way you square it, or you see someone with very curly red hair from Scotland, it adds to you as a person. Now, for us to cover that and only allow those who are permitted to see it is a noble act and should not be shamed. The public doesn't have a right to view your body, to view your beauty, and I think that privatizing your allure is a noble act. Why does your sexuality have to be public domain? Why does your hair have to be visible to others who you did not give permission to? Why should the government tell you you have to reveal your hair, which is part of your sexuality, to the public? Why? And I want you to think about even mermaid art. When you see old school mermaid art, the hair is part of the sexuality. And in that fantasy lore, you would see sailors who it's half woman, half fish. But part of the mermaid's allure was her hair. When she swims in the water and all of that. And I have this old Russian art book that I got in a museum because I like to go to the museum. And I like to look at the old paintings. And I took an art history class. I've taken many art history classes. And the way the painters painted the hair really added to the expression of the woman's sexuality. And so, when a woman decides to cover her hair, she has chosen to discipline that urge to entice the female gaze. And this is the conundrum feminists have and others. They'll say, I get all my makeup and everything for myself. I don't do it for men. If that's the case, what's the problem with wearing a hijab and only letting yourself see it at home? And when women go home, they usually have a hair bun, no makeup, pajamas, and they wear their husband's t-shirt. They don't look like a Barbie inside their home, but when they go out, they dress up because they want to look a certain way to impress others. And they know others will judge them for not looking a certain way. And so, are you really getting dressed for yourself or for others? Because in your home, when you're by yourself, you don't dress really fancy. You are dressed in relaxation and you're fine with looking at yourself in the mirror with nothing. But when you go out in public, it's gotta put on foundation, blush, contour, paint your eyebrows, gotta put your fake eyelashes, gotta put your lipstick, lip gloss, lip liner, all of that, eyeshadow, mascara on the fake eyelashes, whatever, you get my point. All of that is for others. If it was just for you, you would do it either in the home all the time or both outside and inside. But they don't. A lot of women, if they're gonna stay home that day, they're not gonna go do that kinds of stuff. And so we have to examine how the Muslim woman, when she wears a niqab or a hijab with a plain face, she isn't trying to really get that extended validation from others around her. And there's nothing saying she can't adorn and Barbie herself out for her husband at home. And so a Muslim woman actually does it for herself at home for her husband, and that's a beautiful thing. I understand that it's very difficult for women to not want to be the center of attention. Islam helps women to get attention through their intellect, through doing good acts, good deeds, charity, you name it. You see what I'm saying? Hey, Red Dead Redemption! I can listen to you for hours. I love that game, man. That's one of my favorite games. Check out my playlist. I got like over 500 videos. Oh, I love that game so much. It's the best game ever. But look through, if you can do this on your time, look through vintage art of how Christians used to dress. Just go look through it. They used to cover, and there was a spiritual reason for that. Ask yourself, a spiritual woman, now there are different types of spirituality, I understand. Pagan spirituality is quite different than monotheistic spirituality based in the Abrahamic faiths. I understand. Okay? I am aware. Believe me. As someone who studied folktales, mythologies, and different religions, I'm very well aware of how women have expressed their innate nature and spirituality. However, I would argue that when a Muslim woman expresses her spirituality at its highest levels, I would argue she doesn't have the sex appeal. She doesn't have the allure. I personally believe that the more spiritual you become, the less you focus on externalized hedonistic beauty stuff and more on the internal and where you're going in the hereafter. Now, this doesn't mean I'm telling you become 300 pounds. Doesn't mean I'm not telling you to have fun with your husband. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that denying public males from seeing the color of your hair or the design of it, its length, or your neck, anything like that, that it's a good deed. Now, remember, something is interesting here that I want you to examine. Some women will say, well, I want to be like Ilhan Omar and I want to wear a turban and have my neck out. And that would qualify as hijab. But if you recall that I just said that I would go to museums and I would see the art. before it was a Muslim. And a lot of the old paintings would show the neck, the back of the woman. The woman's body is something to be admired when it's in its perfect form with husband and wife. Me being part Italian, I'm very well aware of how the Italians sculpted endless women's bodies. I'm very well aware, okay? So one can't deny that the neck has allure, that the neck isn't something to be looked at, the jawline of the woman, the chin, those all play into it. And if you show your face, but you have the hijab, it's going to cover your neck. So covering your neck, that is a good thing. It's cutting off the allure, okay? Assalamu alaikum, Shug. And so, remember, you can do good by harnessing your desire to be the lust icon. And Islamic clothing helps you as a woman to break free from that. At first you can feel weird. I understand. Believe you me, I can understand. Now, I want you to look at how some women go to the gym. Now, you will see. And they don't gym. And if they did go to an all lesbians, would they still? So we must be honest to why women are deciding to dress this way. And if a woman is honest, and she's not just being manipulative, she will tell you that she dresses provocatively and sensually with a lot of makeup to attract men. Alright, yeah, I hope they're trying to attack the stream. I lost you there for a minute. Can you see me now? Let me know if you can see me now, because they just tried buffering. I bet you trolls are flagging the stream. Feminists are getting probably very pissed. They already mess with the analytics, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try the stream. You're lagging. Okay. Let's see something real quick on the Wi-Fi. How about now? Shug says, going to the gym for some people is a thing to do. It's less about getting in shape and more about showing off. Yes, I totally agree with that. And you'll see a lot of red pillars. They will post about how these women in the gym are filming themselves, stuff like that. But then, if a woman covers up, they'll say the hijab should be banned in Europe. So a lot of them don't make sense. They don't make any sense. They tell women not to dress like that in the gym, but if in public they wear a hijab, Muslim clothing, somehow they're extreme. So if you look at it, if a woman is overly modest, they get mad. If she indulges their senses, they get mad. So the solution, in my opinion, is for women as much as possible to adopt the Islamic clothing standards. And if you are a new revert, I believe it's very important for you to put on the hijab. Right as you say your shahada, the next day you need to put it on. Shug says, and when I see these fake alphas in the gym, I wonder, why are you still so small and weak if you're doing all that monster lifting you claim? Hey, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a clever one. And so, remember that Red Dead Redemption says, I hate red pillars and I love Red Dead Redemption. Yes. Yes. That's the best game ever. I vote best game ever. Arthur Morgan, John Marston, Jim Milton, Dutch Vanderland. That Arabian horse you get in the snowy mountains. Yeah, it's great. It's such a great game. But this talk of banning the hijab in Europe, it's fascinating because those people will complain about lewdness in gyms, how women behave in nightclubs, and how every woman dresses like they're an escort, but then when women cover, it's extreme. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Shuk says people should understand clothes equals civilization. The same people that tell you when in the Romans don't do that in Dubai or Kuwait. Fascinating. That's true. Very true. And so I really hope that sisters who are struggling to cover their hair at bare minimum, please reach out to a sister who's from your culture and get some advice. You know, it's not easy, but you're doing the right thing, and you're actually showing that you have disciplined your inner desires. You've disciplined your self-esteem. You don't depend on others for your validation of yourself. And be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. If you really have high self-esteem, see how you feel going out with your hair covered and all your allure that just not showing. What then will it be? Will you still have the same level, or will it be lower? A lot of women, when they wear tons of makeup and then they get out of the shower, they hurry and put on their makeup again. Why is that? Why is that? Is it because... Hold on. Hedwig is, seems to... They're fighting over some type of treat. So I'm gonna get something. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Alright. I got the little spray bottle. Sometimes Hedwig and Gladiator, they are bullies to one another. They got so much treats in there. I don't see why they have to argue, but sometimes when you got a bunch of treats, you just gotta have more treats. Shik says there's some type of bird war happening in the background. I could tell by the tone and cadence of something heavy was going on. Yeah. Such divas. Oh my gosh. It's like War of the Parrots going on. But I got the spray bottle to break them up if they can't. You know. But, like I was saying, if a woman doesn't have high self-esteem when she comes out of the shower, and she would be ashamed to go in public with no makeup on, we must ask ourselves, are you as strong as you claim to be? Because I don't equate self-care with how much makeup you put on. I rather judge your intention of why you do it, and if you are capable of not wearing it, having the same amount of love for yourself. So those women who wear a lot of makeup and filters, if they went missing, the police wouldn't even know how to find these women, because they don't even look like their profile picture, you know? And so it's important for people to recognize, do you fear the Islamic clothing because it's some fake symbol of oppression? Or is it because you do not want to be invisible, right? I really hope you can examine that. You don't need to feel threatened by women who cover, because lewdness is the American standard. Lewdness is so common now that you have to have mad respect for the women who've broken free from that system. How can one see a woman fully covered, even when it's hot, and say, you know what, she's an extremist? Why not think something positive? Why is it that if a Mormon decided to cover her hair, or an Amish woman with a bonnet, or a nun, or an Orthodox nun, why is it then that they wouldn't be called that? And it's because the color black has been associated with war and oppression. And Muslim women have been heavily targeted and shamed. And so my solution is, if you notice, when I do the art images, I try to put some variety in there, but to frame it in a nice way, where I'll put some poetry, something kind about Muslim women, to compliment them and motivate them, because Muslim women are so heavily maligned and attacked that it's making them want to take off their hijab. And it's sad to me because it's such a wonderful way to live. And it's okay to be invisible. Like, if women will say, all right, I have high self-esteem, I have skills, I have a brain. Okay, wear a hijab, wear a niqab, talk about the same things and see if you get the same attention. You won't. As soon as you cover your allure, yes, the men will flock to those who are doing strange TikTok dances, nearly nude or twerking. That's some of the male brains. Some men do that, you know? And if your life consists of wanting to get as many compliments about your beauty while it lasts, well, that's going to be a hard fall when you start to age. Now, what is fascinating is the epidemic of plastic surgery. Like, there was a woman who had made a video that I came across on Twitter/X who paid $10,000 to have her jaw reshaped. And I thought to myself, $10,000 to have her jaw changed. Kylie Jenner did that. And it's wild, like, so low self-esteem, so much self-loathing, so much need for men to find you attractive that you went and you had your bone changed. That's very strange to me. Then the niqab covers up your jaw. If you're so insecure about your jaw, wear a niqab, honey. You'll be fine. But they'll say, I got my jaw shaved. Like, if that girl said she got her jaw shaved for her own self, it's like, what? That's a broken mind. It's a broken mind. And what's even weirder is if a woman has fake hair. She'll have fake hair. She'll spend thousands of dollars on wigs. And as you know, the hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, cursed wig makers and told women they couldn't wear wigs. Look that up. That's a hadith sahih. But women will get a huge ego by wearing fake hair. I remember my sister, she went through a phase of wearing wigs. It was very bizarre. I hope she's not watching this right now. But I remember my mom telling me, like, your sister's wearing a lot of wigs. And I'm like, why? Why? What is the purpose of that? You know? And they say, oh, you gotta switch it up for your husband, you know, change your wig and change your look. And it's like, am I trying to outrun the FBI? Like, why do I gotta change wigs? So, what's strange is that people will say you can't wear a hijab for security reasons, but if I want to wear a wig, that's okay. And if a man wants to wear a female wig and a dress and get plastic boobs, that's okay. But if a Muslim woman wants to wear a hijab or the niqab, that's bad. I just don't understand. I just don't get it, right? And so, if a feminist can shave her head, which is the rejection of traditional classic Western beauty, then why can't I, as a born Westerner, decide, you know what, I'm going to wear loose clothing. I don't want to wear yoga pants. No, I'm fine. I don't need to wear a sports bra to a gym. I got a home gym. I can work out at home. You know what? I don't need to wear a skirt, thigh high. I don't need to wear a halter top or a tube top. I'm pretty good. I'm going to wear loose Islamic clothing. I don't feel the need to be eye candy for anybody, because when I go out in public, I gotta get to where I gotta go, and I'll keep it moving. I'm not trying to be idle or loiter or like just stand there like bait. Like, no, I gotta go to the store, gotta get things moving, prayer time's coming, you know, dinner's gotta be done. I'm not trying to have men pester me and bother me, right? And so it's very important for women to have the option of fully covering. So when France decides, you know what, we're gonna ban women from being able to cover themselves, and then they put themselves as enlightened, rational beings, while at the same time they deny men the right to paternity testing. And you're like, you guys aren't as enlightened as you think you are. A nation that shames modesty and allows lewdness is one that's not going to really last very long. And so, for me, I've been much happier in my mental health and more spiritually free after adopting Islamic clothing. This enrages people. It's so strange. So strange. I'm the child of a woman who was an escort stripper who had to use her body, she felt. I don't think she had to, but whatever. She chose that. Not good. But she used her body to attract my dad. She got pregnant, and until she started showing, because she stripped while she was pregnant with me, until her belly started to show. I don't consider that liberation. I don't consider that good. I don't consider that moral. I'm glad she didn't abort me, but it would be nice if she didn't do that. And then my stepmom and then my other stepmom were both strippers as well. What are you gonna do? They had bodies. They showed it. They're alcoholics. It just is not a good look for me. Women who have to show their body a lot, they have a lot of internal mental problems. And anyone who's had someone in their family who's done that line of work and had serious conversations with these women, they will see that these women are not as strong as they front themselves to be. And so, one should not fear the Muslim woman. Further, it should also be noted, the occultist woman, the female witch, has to have her sexuality in order to manipulate men. Men should appreciate women covering their allure. That's why it's shocking that the liberal atheist male, he's more enslaved to his lust and not his own personal safety. Women can use their beauty to honey trap men, abuse men, do all kinds of crazy stuff to them, right? So if more women covered their sexuality, a lot of men would probably avoid some psycho women. Okay? And if you avoid psycho women, your life is going to be better. And women who have to show their body, well, a lot of them got some deep problems going on, I'd argue. So be steadfast in your modesty is my point. Don't fear covering up. The Islamic clothing is a blessing. At first, like I said, you might feel weird. Oh, people are looking at me. They may have never seen a Muslim before. But there will be people who admire you. But they're not just going to come up to you and tell you, like, wow, you're doing something I couldn't do. They're not going to do that. But every time you cover, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can reward you for. Because you're being obedient. You're being devout. Shaitan has a harder time using you. Female sexuality is a weapon, but it's also a tool to attract a mate. Once you have your mate, if if you're not fully happy with him, make dua. If you feel like there's no way to fix it, okay, you get your divorce, but that doesn't mean you go out and start dressing lewd. You dress how you want to be addressed. Remember that. Now, yes, it's true that there are some men who they want their wife to be very modest and in the home, but then they go and they cheat with escorts. This is a sin. But that doesn't mean that because your husband may cheat on you with a hooker, that somehow the legislation of Islam becomes invalid and you're not going to be rewarded by Allah for obeying his commands concerning Islamic clothing. No, you're going to be rewarded for being modest no matter what. And you not tempting other women's husbands or tempting lesbians and not bringing the evil eye of jealousy upon you is good. A lot of people don't like to admit that they constantly are scanning people and judging them. Oh, her shoes are ugly. Oh, she's too fat for those pants. Oh, she's this. Oh, she's that. When you wear the Islamic clothing, it cuts so much of that evil off of you. And it's important for you to know that you can get to the level of truly not caring. So women will put on a bunch of makeup, get plastic surgery, and say, I don't care what nobody thinks. Yes, you do. That's why you're dressed in the way you're dressed. Dress to impress, they say. You want to impress others, so you're dressing that way. You are trying to appear that you're trying to fake it till you make it. You're trying to dress rich to attract rich. You're trying to dress lewd to attract customers, attract a new guy, whatever it is. We know this as women, and I'm not sure why some women don't want to admit this, right? It's important for men to control their gaze, and it's important for women to help men to do that and to practice discipline, right? Discipline yourself. Even if you gotta do it in steps, it's still worth it. You'll start to like it. I think truly you will be like, wow, I don't have men coming up to me and catcalling me anymore. Because women will dress, flaunt everything they got, and they get very angry when a man approaches them. And then they say, oh, I'm ugly, nobody's approaching me. You can't win. You can't win with these women. They will call you a creep for approaching them. And then they complain if men are too, excuse me, if men are too standoffish. And then they have low self-esteem. You just can't win, you know? Remember, you can have your fashion styles at home. You can have certain types of fashions with your Muslim female clothing. The point is retiring from the hedonism of liberal atheists. So, controlling that desire to tempt that married man, to tempt your boss, it's just so important. It's shocking how many women who are 30 years old are like going after minor teen boys. It's quite shocking. Married women who are non-Muslim who go after high school boys. It's a very sick phenomenon. You're just like, what are these women doing? They're ruining their marriages and they're going after these young guys because they want the validation from these teen boys. It's just so strange that they don't want to age. They don't want to age. The female Muslim clothing helps you to accept aging. It helps you to divide from your fleshly self. And you honor your husband and you honor the rules of Islam. And the fact that religions used to show so many women covering their hair and wearing loose clothing, that's a sign that there is a form of spirituality that says to itself, hey, being above carnal desires, you are liberated. You're out of this enslavement. Because so many women attach their self-worth to their beauty, because men do reward beauty. And sometimes they reward it in a good way, and sometimes they incentivize it in a bad way, which is like paying for OF, going to brothels, you know, all that stuff. That's incentivizing beauty that causes destruction, because it destabilizes marriages, creates fornication and adultery, spreads STDs, right? But if you discipline yourself as a woman, and you truly work on your mind, this can help you to not feel so sad with your aging process. Because if you start at the age of, like, in high school, you start focusing on looking in the mirror constantly, and you're not getting the attention, then you go to college, and then you sleep with a bunch of different guys, and then you get this bad reputation, you've let it all hang out, and then you've done OF, and then you see a woman who's fully covered, who's broken free from hedonism and her own desires and her own hedonism, you will see she's more free than you, and sometimes that can make those women very angry. because they realized that their promiscuity didn't get them as far as they thought it would. And so it's quite humbling to recognize that you can get more self-satisfaction and more spirituality by disciplining your allure. It's so important for you. I really hope that you can see that. There's a reason why. Okay, so think about it this way. We are in an age where women are the most uncovered, not good manners, aggressive, boss babes, entitled, egotistical, the most abortions ever recorded in the world. Okay, so many women on drugs, drinking alcohol, doing adult content. Okay, and yet they target the Muslim woman for covering up. I want you to think about that. They're so angry. They have so much free content to see of lewd women, but there's a woman who defies them. Says, no. I don't care about your whatever. I don't really care. I'm moving how I want to move. I'm gonna study. I'm happy that my husband likes me. I don't really need some guy who's sitting at a cafe smoking a cigarette to think I'm a 10. I'm fine, And so, modesty can also make your husband feel more safe. It's good to be good to your husband. I see so many Christian women, they will be so lustful online, and it's just like, the husbands at first, they seem proud, like, look at my really hot wife. But it's like, why are you tempting your Christian brothers? Why are you doing that? I don't understand. I don't really get it. And when those Christian women see the modesty of the Muslim woman, they become afraid that their husband will demand that they themselves be modest. I think a lot of Christian women struggle with this. The old school grandma Christians, I think they liked modesty because it was the culture. But the modern Christian women today, well, they have a different view on the role of women and female dress codes. Sure, they will wear sundresses, and you're like, that's not exactly modest, but okay. But when they see a nun, they're like, oh, I could never. It's strange. A Christian woman will wear a cross with a very provocative shirt. And you're like, that just seems gross to me. That seems really gross that you would do that. And it's fascinating. When you watch some of these videos where the women are getting ready for church, they're getting really sexy for church. Are you going to church for your soul, or are you going to make other women jealous and then stimulate the men at the church? That's why Islam is superior, because it separates men from women in the spiritual place. Because it's supposed to be working on your soul. And we Muslim women can stay at home and pray. We're not free mixing, and we're not doing that stuff. And so, when a Christian woman of the modern age is confronted with true modesty, I think she on a deep level fears it, because she knows, if I cover my beauty, it's harder for me to replace my husband if he starts to misbehave. And a Muslim woman, when she covers, she says, basically, in my opinion, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, my husband may cheat, my husband may be bad, but I won't break the rules of modesty. And if I'm meant to be a widow, if I'm meant to be a divorcee alone, if I'm meant to be a second, third, fourth wife, you name it, or marry a man who's also divorced with kids, so be it. It's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Muslim woman doesn't say, let me dress sexy so that I can bait myself like fish bait. That's why I feel like Muslim women are more enlightened and special, because they move with more grace. I know that there's women, obviously, who don't do that. Okay? I understand there's really bad ladies on TikTok who you wonder how deep their faith is. I understand. But what I'm getting at is the female Muslim clothing when it to me it's like a crown. It's something so special and spiritual. It's fascinating just how when you start to wear it, you're letting your husband know that no other man gets to really look at it. And some people can make a joke. They can say, ah, you're a 5, so who's really looking? It doesn't matter if you're a 9, if you're a 2, but the fact of the matter is you're still honoring your husband. And you're setting a good example for the little children. A lot of people underestimate this. It's gross to me. Okay, let's go deeper. Pregnant. There was a reel I saw where a pregnant woman, she was trying to fit into a tight dress and she felt like she was so big and she started crying. And a lot of women, when they get pregnant, they hate their pregnancy because they can't be sexy. And to me, when you wear Islamic clothing while pregnant, it's way more spiritual because you don't feel like you're like a pork sausage. You don't feel like you're stuffed into a tiny clothing so men can like looking at you. When you wear loose clothing while you're pregnant, it's more freeing in a way because the way the breeze is, your figure isn't like all looked at. There are so many women who are deeply insecure when they're pregnant that they wear tight clothes and they're like, oh, I still have to be hot. I still have to be hot. Am I attractive? And it's like, no, honey, you need to focus on the spiritual nature of growing the soul within you. You are fostering a life in you. And that should be your focus, not the male gaze. Not, oh, am I fat? Or does my belly look weird? Or nothing like that. Loose clothing cuts out a lot of evil eye from your pregnancy as well. There's a lot of infertile women who are very resentful of pregnant women. When you wear loose Muslim clothing, I feel that it cuts off a lot of the evil gaze of envious, infertile women. And it's important for women to remember how wicked the gaze is of other women. Men, when they look at you, they're judging, oh, is she hot, is she not? Okay, that's the lustful gaze, which can be dangerous. But they always underestimate the cattiness of other women, okay? And it's beautiful when I see a woman who's modest because she's not trying to threaten anybody. She's not trying to get the room's attention. And you know she has a very strong soul where she's probably not committing adultery. A woman who has everything hanging out and claims to be spiritual, I really have an issue with that. I think to myself, well, you're tempting the lust demons, and lust demons are a beast for women to fight. That hormone, when you get those wicked thoughts, or if a woman gets excited when she sees another woman's husband looking at her, that's the shaitan. But when you cover as a Muslim woman, in my opinion, you are operating in a different mindset in the world. Like, I don't want your husband, I don't care about this, I don't care about that. How long is the line to pay this bill at the store or whatever, right? Your focus is totally shifted, and that allows you to be more free. And who wants to keep you uncovered? Because that tells you what their agenda is. For me personally, I really wish I would have known more about modesty in the Islamic sense being young, because the 90s was a brutal time for so many American girls who were fatherless like me. You don't have a father to tell you. You don't have a father to look out for you, to guide you, to protect you. My mother was a whore. It's like, what are you going to do? Wow, how do you succeed? There were some good, modest Christian ladies, but, I didn't really hang out much around them. So, it's a fascinating thing. And women can give other women advice in different ways. It is dangerous for Muslim women to have conversations that are tense in public because tons of violent crime happens in America. I think you have to remember that. There's a lot of mentally ill, unstable people who will attack you, and they don't see your religious clothing as something to be respected, and they will harm you. And so, if someone comes and asks you about the hijab, then you can have a respectful conversation. But if you go to like a place and debate, they may harm you. And so you have to be careful. You have to be careful because debating helps, but I would say it's better to have civilized dialogues with the right people in person, and then online it's obviously quite different. You can have debates because there's not the threat of violence. Okay? Tons of people get jumped, shanked, beaten in California. California is a very violent state. And there are tons of atheists who have zero respect for you as a religious woman, and they will harm you. And there are lots of women who they dress very lewdly and they get very masculine and very violent very quick. I've been in a lot of fistfights in my life. And women who are loudmouth, who are arrogant, they'll put hands on you like nothing. They don't fear going to jail. Okay? So be mindful. Be mindful. A Muslim woman doesn't have to go out and push people and say, you know, this is why you have to wear the hijab. I would argue that there's a graceful way to do it, and know the time and place when to bring it up. And you should go out with your husband because you should need to be safe and protected. You have to be civilized. You need to be very, very careful. Shug says, guys walking around in California with box cutters, and that's just one worry. Oh, that's very true. Yeah, there's a lot of mentally deranged people. A lot of them. And women, when you tell them to be modest, a lot of them get very aggressive. And a Muslim woman, if you don't know how to fight, you don't need to be engaging with those women. Now, alhamdulillah, I can hold my own. But I have my children. And I don't want my children to see me pummeling someone or to see even me get pummeled. That's why there's a time and place for such discussions, right? So let the men handle public dawah, that's like where they have a booth and such, and maybe if they have a sister there who's like an old lady and she's very like versed in Islam, and a sister can, a non-Muslim woman can talk to her and be curious about the hijab, that'd be good. But if I was to talk to a occultist female about the hijab versus her philosophy, I would do something like that online. I wouldn't do something in person. I have anger management issues, and I can be impulsive. And because I grew up in violent areas, I don't have the temperament to talk to someone aggressively for very long in person. I don't have it. I shouldn't be the one to do that, because if someone starts getting in my face, I'll feel the adrenaline, and I'm a fist fighter, I'm not a hair puller, and it wouldn't turn out very well, and then I would be a bad representation for Islam. I don't have the temperament. Online, sure, I have the temperament. I can breathe, I can, drink some iced tea. But in person, that's totally different. Because now the person's in front of me, and if they're trying to intimidate me, it's going to be totally different. So people who have patience should go out in public. If I lack patience, I shouldn't be the one in public. So that's what I'd argue. And just remember that if someone is saying Islamic clothing doesn't belong in Europe, again, say, have you looked at the history of Christian clothing over time in Europe? Let us look at the clothing of women in Spain over the years. Let us examine how different Catholic sects depict the Virgin Mary. So, if the Virgin Mary was dressed in an all-black clothing, or gray, or brown, she would look like a Muslim in the street. So you want to ban the clothing of the Virgin Mary? And they would say, what? No, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. Wouldn't it be better, I'd argue, if Christian women dressed like the Virgin Mary on their own? It would be so much better for them. But it's difficult. Why? Because the Disney generation, really did a number on them. Miley Cyrus did a, Taylor Swift. The female archetypes that were given to Christian girls really led them astray, right? Shook says Vatican I ended nuns wearing habit. It's almost completely gone. It's really quite sad. And so the biggest act of you, but let me put it this way. By you wearing Islamic clothing, you're being a revolutionary because you're rejecting men from being able to gawk at you and from women to give you the evil eye. And a feminist, if she allows a woman to be nude, by her logic, she cannot allow a woman to be stopped from covering up. Because if it's really about female rights, human rights, what's more of a human right than allowing us to cover? Think about it. You can't force women to reveal their skin. You can't do that. And so, if one day America, which I'm gonna call America-stan, if they try to ban it, I think I would still wear it, and if they want to drag me and arrest me and beat me for covering up, well, then that's actually just going to help more people see the brilliance of Islam, right? What are they going to do? Fine me? So you're going to fine me for not showing my body? Yeah. And so, please, sisters, I would also argue okay, let me put it this way. I often wonder why there are feminist Muslims online who don't wear hijab and have a lot of makeup. And I wonder why they become the voice for Muslim women. It's like, I'm not saying they don't believe in Allah Azza. I'm not doing takfir. But I just think to myself, has not the sweetness of the hijab touched you yet? How has your heart not been moved yet to want to cover at least your hair? At least your hair. If you're gonna wear like some weird corporate dress because you're a LinkedIn lady, but I mean, at least your hair. At least. But they don't. I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, don't you fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Have you not read the hadith? Have you not read the Quran enough? And then you see them try to make excuses like, oh, we shouldn't do this and we shouldn't do that. And it's just very strange to me. Because it just shows you the power of needing to be seen as a beautiful object. Now, when you cover, you are no longer just a gallery ornament. You can be that at home. But cover when you go out in public, like a present. To me, it just seems something very valuable. People will put covers over their motorcycle. They'll put covers over their cars to protect them from the sun, weather damage. But with their wife, they kind of have like a cuck fetish in a way, because they want other men to look at their wife. It's very strange to me. And then they get very upset when a man with more money comes along and takes their wife. It's strange to me. And then I'll hear the gold diggers say like, oh, when your husband's at work, you gotta go to the right happy hour bar and sit there and make eye contact and accidentally drop something so he picks it up. Like, they have all these strategies to replace their men for something better. And so both of those types of people really resent Islamic clothing. And I came across a very sad video. I found it sad anyway, where on Twitter X, it was just some person filming, but they started filming a niqabi, and she wasn't doing anything. I think she was walking to catch the bus or something, and they're like, should it be banned? Should the hijab be banned in all of Europe? She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't hurting nobody. She was just going to the bus stop, and they think it should be banned. Meanwhile, I won't say the page, but there's like a crime page that I follow, and they have drones that they fly into Oakland, and women are nearly nude standing on the street corner selling themselves in public. They walk up and down the street almost bare nude in public. And the men will say, this is a bad, you shouldn't be allowed to do that. Liberals will say, this freedom, female empowerment. But they don't say ban that. But they want to ban someone covering up. So in Oakland, they decriminalize loitering for prostitution, which means a police officer, if you're dressed in a thong and high heels and a leather jacket, they can't tell you to cover up and to get off the streets. So they say that's a Western value. A Western value is women hooking themselves in the nude in public. That's allowed, but women covering, that's too much. So notice the pattern here. It's fine for women to flaunt themselves for men's enjoyment, but it's not okay for a spiritual, chaste woman to cover her hair and her face if she wants. Even though they just imposed the face mask during the lockdowns, it's just so bizarre how they just can't keep their mind straight. You know? It's just strange to me. So that's why it's so important now for Muslim women to love their hijab. Don't see that like you're not missing out on anything. Because yes, it's okay, let me put it this way. It's true that no matter what you wear, someone can do some harm to you. But you attract less flies. You attract less flies. Okay? And it sends a message to those men that you're not easy. When you dress in female Muslim clothing, you're showing them that you're not as easy, inshallah. Right? I understand there's the degenerates, no strings nikah marriages, McDonald's marriages. I understand there are people who are ruining the honor of Muslim sisters by having fast, easy hookup marriages where the dowry is a McChicken sandwich off the dollar menu. I understand that that's a thing. Okay? And I hope sisters stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Okay? Take the religion seriously and fear Allah. But when people usually traditionally see a Muslim woman and she's well behaved, she's not causing problems, you want them to see a sign of respect. I saw a nun for the first time in my area walking, and we walked past each other, and I said hello, and she just said hello back. But it was fascinating, just thinking about how there could be people who see her and see, wow, that's a chaste woman. But then people who hate Islam see me and my little children and my daughter in hijab and think like we're extremists and we're bad and we don't belong in America. It's so bizarre to me. So bizarre. And then I'll see girls who are dressing like they are 25 and they're minors and they're letting it all hang out, and you're like, something ain't right here. Something ain't right here. Women being hypersexual risks a lot. It's too risky. You risk attracting bad men, attracting the envy and malice of women, attracting occultic energy, and you risk becoming a slave to your own desires. You risk becoming trapped in the flesh and not excelling to a higher level of development. Now, if I saw a woman who was in sub-Saharan Africa and she was a tribeswoman and she's got her face painted and she's got skin showing, I don't think of her the same as somebody who is half nude in Miami who's drunk on Chardonnay. I do recognize that there are pagan, shamanistic women in the tribal cultures who view the skin differently than me. And in my opinion, I see my female expression of spirituality where the body is concealed to be superior to that than the one that reveals. Because the one that reveals the body tempts the body and is using the body as a weapon. And I think you have to excel past your own body in order to become enlightened, to become spiritual. Now, I'm not saying you don't eat salads, that you don't take your multivitamin. No, no, no. I'm not saying neglect your health and don't shower. That's not what I'm saying. That's your body has rights over you. What I am saying is when you discipline the flaunting, the peacocking of your own self, because you have to get past that. Because time is ticking and time will strip you of all your beauty. And if you can't let it go, you will spend thousands of dollars chasing the past. And you will hate younger women because they remind you of your fading allure. In my opinion, when you adopt a female Islamic clothing, you then realize that you don't need to hate aging and that you don't need to hate women who are beautiful but they harness it for their husband. I want you to think about something further. Women who flaunt their beauty. If their son came home with a wife who shows it all or covers, who on a deeper level would you want for your son? And your answer shows what kind of woman you are. Will you love your son, or will you choose the sisterhood, the occultic sisterhood, over your boy? This is something people don't want to talk about. Mothers who will defend women against their own sons don't love their sons and are not good women. But a mother, even if she herself is a harlot and she sees her son come home with a lewd woman, that's a reflection of who she is. She will say, I think it's better my son has one of those covered women, if she actually loves her son more than she loves her own gender, right? Something to think about. Something to think about. So for me, people are envious of the modesty standard of Islam. Because you can't tell me, look at all these 304s in Miami. Oh, look at that. And then turn around and say women should be banned from wearing the hijab. What? How can you shame the 304 woman and then mock her the opposite of that? So you mock her when she's openly lewd, and you mock her when she covers. What's going on here? It doesn't make sense to me. And that's why Islam has a consistent standard. Consistent. It doesn't fluctuate with fashion trends. I truly would like to see an experiment of women who, let's say they're non-Muslim, right? Well, technically, yeah, take a non-Muslim, have them dress with a niqab or a hijab for a month, and ask them how they feel after. See what it feels like. What was their inner dialogue, right? Augusto says, I think they have identity clash. They know the truth, but they feel they will not be themselves anymore. Interesting. I would argue that the Islamic clothing brings you to a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of spirituality, and actual freedom. This is why I really hope some Muslim sisters openly talk about why they love their clothing. Because if you do not, you allow the ex-Muslim crowd to take over the conversation. You allow the military-industrial complex to use Muslim women as a tool to invade other countries. Because they always use the Muslim woman as a pretext for waging war, while in Oakland they have women selling themselves. Examine it. It's very feminine to cover, and very lewd and Jezebelish to uncover yourselves. And if you listen to some of these gold diggers, they will openly tell you that they date married men. It's quite sad. It's very sad. Very sad. But the beautiful thing is, in Islam, a man can have more than one wife. And it's even more beautiful when all those wives cover. That's just a man who has 4 wives who covers, or 1 wife who covers, is better than a man who has a harem of 23 women who aren't covered, because he doesn't really, I don't want to say possess. What I want to say is it's like they're more rebellious. They're more cunning, more catty. They're on display for everybody. And they don't really have a mind and individuality. They're like these automatonic clones of flesh. Whereas when you know a Muslim woman has built a following and she's covered, you know it's part of the brain. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Think about it. If it's easy for a woman who is just pretty to get millions of followers and money, it's harder for a woman who covers to use her brain and skills to get a following. It's like men have to work really, really hard to earn a following, usually. Like Aiden Ross, those types, they earn their following through being weird, not because they're intelligent. But intelligent men have to do something in order to get renowned, to get a good reputation. Muslim women, when you cover, now you will see if you have something to offer the world in terms of academia, whatever your skill set is. Your skills will be shown before your beauty. For example, there's a lot of female Christians on the right. They use their beauty, but if you look at their ideas, they're not very wise. Why do they have so many followers? Well, they're eye candy and they're nice to look at. It's another reasons why news anchors put pretty women on. They're not really smart, but they're just pretty to look at. But a woman who covers, she is picked because of her brain and what she offers, not just her beauty. And so it comes down to, do you want an increased IQ? Do you want women to earn in a noble way? Well, you see who's truly smart when they start to cover. This is my opinion. I really do believe that. Sisters who cover and then do good deeds, educational stuff, they go throughout life, that's amazing because you know that they have skills, they have grit, they have a genuineness to them. They're in it to win it, right? But women who are uncovered and using their sexuality, they say they're dedicated to their cause, but are they? It's just a different way of looking at it. I hope I've made what I'm trying to say clear, because it's important for people to talk about it in an in-depth analysis, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to help people see that they don't need to fear Muslim women covering. We're not a threat. We're not a threat. Now, you won't be able to control us as easily because we're not going to be insecure. A Muslim woman covering is showing that she's not insecure, that she's not going to be as controlled by the insecurity markets that are pushed on women. Truly. And I know that there's got to be some Muslim sisters out there that can see what I'm talking about. Because you'd be shocked how many women are absolutely stunning, but they have the lowest self-esteem. And you're like, how can you have that low self-esteem when you look like that? But they're taught to just always find a flaw. The female Islamic clothing cuts people off from sizing you up, tearing you down, and also helps to protect you from your own inner hatred. It's truly beautiful. It's truly beautiful. There's countless benefits that I've talked about. If you just go through my vlog playlist about the changes I notice when I wear Islamic clothing, it's a wonderful gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to cover. And like I said, there's two branches you can go in spirituality. The hedonistic, pagan side of expose it all, or the Islamic monotheistic standard of cover your beauty. You have a choice. See which one attracts different type of people to your life. A lot of women, like I said, they complain when men catcall them, come up to them and stuff. Men will see a booty, they come up and they bother you. They see your chest out, they come up, they bother you. And then when they are afraid to approach you, those women will then say, no one's approaching me, I guess I need a boob job. So now she's insecure and it's all a mess. You see what I mean? Be free and come to the fold of Islam. Islam truly liberates the woman from her own inner self. It allows you to excel. When I talk to another sister and you looking in her eyes, you don't have the external to judge and say, oh, she has this, oh, she has that, blah, 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 blah. You're not distracted by her allure. You're just two souls looking into the black pupils of each other and talking. That's very powerful. Very powerful. When you are connected, like you're looking at that person in an intense way. Not distracted by the like whatever they got on their body. Like when you encounter someone, they got an Adidas shirt, you're looking at the color of their pants, if their shoes match. You know, the fashion can distract you so many times while you're actually trying to think and talk to this person. But if you're talking to somebody who is in Islamic clothing, it's almost like it forces you to like engage, and your brain isn't as distracted by everything on that person. And you can get to tense core issues. And if you notice, when women start to lose an argument, they'll start insulting like the looks of the woman. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. But when you have the Islamic clothing, it's a lot harder for someone to come at you with ad hominem attacks. They focus more on the substance, inshallah, right? Think about that. Just be very mindful of it. I hope this has motivated some people to not fear Islamic clothing, and please look throughout history to see how in Europe lots of women used to cover their hair. Lots of Americans covered their beauty, their allure. It is the modern liberal atheist who has declothed women and really turned them into quite something of an abomination that has low self-esteem and externalizes their validation. Islam, through the Islamic clothing standards, allows you to be your own engine of energy, where you glide through the evil glances of others with breeze, because you're not bogged and slowed down by hoping that you are approved of by the way you exist. It's very important. Women like things that are beautiful. You can make your home beautiful. You can look beautiful for your husband. You can paint. You can make things. You have a garden. You can make things beautiful to get that energy out. You don't have to be a supermodel in public for anyone. You can be a supermodel at home for your husband. Special. Do it for him. And even if he doesn't appreciate it, you're still doing a good deed, regardless of if he appreciates it or not. And maybe with time, he will learn to appreciate your modesty. Maybe he's not used to it. Maybe he himself, your husband, has to learn to value modesty. It's hard for men because they're programmed to constantly indulge the baser carnal desires. It's difficult for them. They struggle. And so maybe at first they don't like their wife's modesty. But in time, inshallah, they can learn to love it and value your sacrifice and see you as more special. And remember, even if you cover and your husband fails to lower his gaze or he commits a sin, you still are doing a good deed by covering. And so you don't have to be hard on your heart. And you covering is a noble act. You are such a good role model, sisters, for covering, and little girls seeing you instead of Cardi B. They're seeing modesty and grace, classiness, true spirituality. They're not seeing women in miniskirts pimping themselves in Oakland, or booty shaking on a stage like Nicki Minaj and Cardi B. They don't need to see that. They don't need to see it. Or Britney Spears just goes crazy and she records videos of herself nearly nude in her kitchen, waving knives around, totally mentally ill. Britney Spears got so many injections of the male gaze in her life, I think it made her crazy. Britney Spears is a prime example of you get so much male attention and then it goes away and you go crazy and you're just like, I gotta do anything for the spotlight. Islam frees you from that, and Islam makes you as a woman focus on your mind, what you say, your actions, to earn your place, to earn your status. When you see like a Muslim female scholar, she's fully covered, you know she earned it. She didn't get it just because she slept with somebody, you know? She didn't get it because she used her beauty to get ahead. Islam does allow women to be classy, to have a different form of grace. And just remember that you'll feel weird at first because how the marketing works. But the Muslim woman must be strong. That's her internal struggle and external struggle, is to defy people who want to undress her. And remember, you can always message me through my blog if you're somebody who's struggling with the hijab. And remember, there's gonna be people who argue about everything concerning the hijab. But like I said, the main issue is covering your hair and wearing loose clothing. Start from there. Okay? Start from there. And covering your hair while you go to work is great. And don't do the convertible. Personally, please, don't do the showing the big gap and like your hair is like down, you can still see it. Try your best to cover, like, please, like, you know, your hair, you know. I know that's hard to do for some, but it can work. And so please consider it. Know that the occultist women who want to undress you, they don't have your best interest in heart. Don't do it. It's important to reach out to sisters who have a higher level of iman than you. It's important to reach out to sisters who have seen both sides of the fence. Western reverts can show you that you can break free from that cycle of male validation, from female envy. It's possible. And once you get over that hurdle, you'll say, wow, man, I can't believe there was a time where I didn't wear hijab. I wish I would have started sooner. Be mindful. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to be different from the disbelievers. One of the best ways to differentiate yourself from the disbelievers is to wear the Islamic clothing. Muslim women are blessed. They've been given the gift of Islam. Show you appreciate the gift of Islam by obeying the clothing. It's necessary, and it proves to me in a deep sense that you're trying. You know? Let me know what you think. I'm gonna go get started on some cooking. If you'd like to support my work and read the other things I write, you can do so by going to www.subscribestar.com/Milahan. Hope to see you there.